Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Propagandacast. Lehr, the topic of today shall be the Panzergrenadier. Yes, indeed, the Panzergrenadier. We shall be going over the basics of him. Of course, there will be more advanced tactics along the way, but overall, we will be looking at the basics. Also, quick little extra fun tip here for the Propagandacast, though this is not even part of it, but hitting the dirt while already in cover does not improve your bonuses. The bonuses do not stack, so keep that in mind. Apparently, the Soviet player here didn't know that, but they do not stack. So you can't suddenly hit the dirt behind and come and then get, "Hoorah! We are invincible!" No, you'll just still get shot. I mean, you'll still get the, I think, the heavy cover bonus, but you won't suddenly get an extra bonus on top of that. So, quick little note there. Just quick little note. Back here, your average Panzergrenadier squad equipped with the mächtige Sturmgewehr 44, named by the Führer himself. Able to lay down a nice amount of bullets, effective at several ranges. The Panzergrenadier has about the same durability as your average Grenadier squad, that is the same amount of armor, the same amount of health. They do, on the other hand, do considerably more damage at all ranges, pretty much. Though that's for more and larger amount of bullets than rather superior bullets, since bolt action rifles always shoot a better bullet. But anyways, overall, got the same, that way, the same vulnerabilities as the Grenadiers. Of course, they'll be slightly more exacerbated, as you might be tempted to sort of just charge your Panzergrenadiers at your opponent. And of course, at the same time, the other weaknesses apply this, they're very likely to just get wiped out in one blow if you're not careful from a mine or a grenade. So again, keep that in mind while using your Panzergrenadiers. No matter how much you like them to be it, they're not German super soldiers. Die wird nichts, die Supersoldaten mit die Wunderwaffen. So of course, little thing there, of course, they can be upgraded with the Raketen Panzerbüchse. They've got access to the bundled grenade, the Geballte Ladung, an old stormtrooper tactic from World War I. Also used as an anti-tank grenade, by the way, in the early stage of the war. Perhaps not the best thing for cleaning up buildings, though the grenade is reasonably effective overall, although generally you want to be careful about how to utilize it anyways. But they of course taking things up close. Overall, again, if they can get close to something, they'd be quite lethal, but again, the trick is occasionally getting them there. And you can risk, if you're just rushing across open ground, that you do end up lose one poor bastard on the charge. And some players do tend to be a bit recklessly towards that, so do be careful. Do be careful. Do be very much careful, in fact. They can, of course, be upgraded with things like the Gewehr 43, which overall sort of changes how they do damage overall. I mean, they'll be a bit better at ranges, for example, or at least better than they are currently. And, of course, you can then sort of combine with the short rifle to create some different type of combinations. But again, Spellway, again, hit the dirt, does not stack with pound again. Getting close in this case, how do you not retreat so fast and hit the dirt? You might be able to get out of it, do some damage. Overall, though, again, so far, though, largely through an opponent has been able to lay down a fire. I mean, they're only still at half health, but even then, you know, that's actually, you know, still an indicator that perhaps, you know, they're not that tough either. They do get quicker on some ability bonuses as they vent up, which is quite nice. And I believe they're also veterans if they actually get increased range on their bundled grenades. So something that's given confidence to have go another score, they immediately suffers a loss. So again, they do have their weaknesses, keep that in mind. So players, keep that in mind. German players, and again, part of this again, the small squad numbers. That can easily turn against you. Small T-70 here arriving. And there we go, retreating. One man down. Laufen, meine Herren, laufen! But, sort of a quick introduction to the Panzergrenadiers again. Hope that gave you some of the ideas, the basics. Though again, there'll also be a few videos explaining some other aspects of them. And of course, later on I might do some more advanced videos covering the Panzergrenadiers, more about tactics, strategies and whatnot. But overall, again, this is some of the more basic knowledge that might help you in understanding the Panzergrenadiers, understanding their strengths, the weaknesses, understanding how to use them, understanding how to fight them. This is already there. I hope this is enlightening, of course. If not, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, you know, I hope you're learning from this, gaining some ideas on how to use them and how to fight them. But moving on to the next video, there are more topics on this already to cover, even in the basics. And moving on to the next part of this little video, that is Panzergrenadiers with Panzergrenadiers mit Raketen Panzerbüchse. Something a lot of people are fond of getting, obviously. I mean, 2 rocket launches is always quite nice in dealing with armour, but overall a lot of mistakes do seem to be generally committed when it comes to these Panzergrenadiers. With the Panzergrenadiers, perhaps a bit of a leftover from Company of Heroes, where in some regards you perhaps weren't as punished as much for slightly silly actions as you could have been. But let's see here what happens, and let us then discuss it. Moving up to the Panzergrenadiers across open terrain versus a tank. The foul tank, and first hit misses, but even then there's always a bit of a problem here. They're not looking too good. Next, not quite successful. Still no, though. They sent a bit bunching up, and there we go. Dead. Again, that is one of those sort of major dangers that a lot of Panzergrenadier players, take charge of. They charge across open ground versus a tank. That's generally not a good idea. And you again might be wondering, well, why is that, Kameraden? Because again, you'll be exposing yourself quite easily to the high explosive shells and the machine guns of the tank. I mean, ultimately, both sides got a bit lucky here, but in the end, what rather happened was what's supposed to happen. Again, the Panzergrenadiers got killed. I mean, it really doesn't take that much. One well-placed high explosive shell, and it's good night, Fritz. And of course, another danger of doing it like this is also very likely to drop the Panzergrenadiers. So in that sense, a lot of players do this again, do tend to hand over a lot of valuable war material to their opponents, which is generally not what you want, because in particular the Soviets don't quite have the same little weakness the Germans do, which is, they have larger squads, so they can a lot more easily afford this. Which is also, by coincidence, why the Soviets are not likely to get Panzergrenadiers unless they're in much smaller units, like the Partisans. So over there, I mean, again, a bit of a problem. And then you might be asking, well, what should Sir Muffin have done instead? Well, there's a nice big fat building right next to it. Infantry in buildings are considerably harder to deal with. They take less damage. Of course, there's some other effects here to sort of mitigate it, because, again, for example, consider here 4 windows. I mean, ultimately, he wouldn't have been able to do a lot of damage to all of them at the same time, so thus would not have been able to kill them all at the same time. Overall, no matter what, it would have increased the survivability. There are other methods, of course. You could have, for example, taken up some cover initially. Heavy cover, though, the best. Light cover, of course, you have to be a bit careful with, but heavy cover better. Had he gone for a defensive doctrine that offered trenches, trenches can also be an opportunity, of course, not here, but in other matches, of course, where perhaps don't have so much to take up in. Bunkers can also be used, but otherwise, again, the building here would offer a much better chance of taking out that T-34 with this Panzergrenadier with Panzergrenadiers. So that is something very vital to keep in mind. And again, a lot of players just sort of tend to get some, run up to the tank, and then lose them. In particular, something like an IS-2 will very easily wipe out your Panzergrenadiers. So whenever possible, when using your Panzergrenadiers, use cover, preferably heavy, or use buildings somehow to sort of again mitigate the return fire from the tanks. Otherwise, again, your Panzergrenadiers are not going to have a fun time. And of course, that also leads to the second one, which is a lot of players then tend to sort of get all of their Panzergrenadiers with Panzergrenadiers thinking, yes, this is great, this is wonderful. And then, of course, perhaps ignoring all the infantry, because the Panzergrenadiers do considerably decrease the amount of firepower your Panzergrenadiers can project towards your Bolshevik foe. So again, always be careful about that, and there's no reason to upgrade all of them necessarily. And again, a Panzergrenadier squad unupgraded is quite effective against infantry, just shouldn't, be wasted on that. So that's also something very much to keep in mind while playing the game. But overall, again, don't just charge across open ground if it can be avoided with your Panzergrenadiers with Panzergrenadiers. Do try again to take up defensive positions, or at least fortified positions, before dealing with armor. You're going to enjoy your infantry for much longer if you do that, and you're also a lot less likely to hand over weapons to your opponent. All good things. And of course, there's also something for the Russians to remember. Again, if you spot some Panzergrenadiers out in the open with Panzergrenadiers, shoot away. I mean, you've got a good chance of actually wiping them out if you do it from the proper ways. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And then moving on to the slightest bit here, the slightest topic here, just sort of quick explanation of another little thing I see a lot of players doing, which perhaps could be avoided at least partially. And on to the last bit regarding ranges of engagement. Whoops! Certainly you can't jump this, you have to sort of speed forwards, but engagement ranges of your Panzergrenadiers and what sort of units are best to engage at what times. For example, right here, charging into shock troopers with your Panzergrenadiers is hardly the wisest of ideas. Of course, in this case, he's got Grenadiers to support them, but overall, this is rarely the sort of good engagement you want. And you might be asking yourself again, you know, well, isn't that obvious? But again, you know, there are then perhaps better ranges to engage from. I mean, shock troopers overall will do this with this body armor. We'll be able to soak up a lot more damage to the Panzergrenadiers up close, and of course, be able to do reasonable well damage with the submachine guns. Overall, having 6 of them, that's, you know, able to project a lot of fire. And you might say, well, you know, then my Panzergrenadiers can't do anything against them. Well, that's the thing, of course. Obviously, up close, they're going to lose, and, you know, but they can engage at other ranges. I mean, they are equipped with assault rifles, for example, at more of a medium range, where your opponent's shock troopers, SMGs, perhaps can't do as well. You know, you might have a slight chance. And you say, well, you know, he might charge at me, and then you just might say, you know, throw a bun grenade at his feet. Have some other units to buy, but again, you know, there are some things that could, you know, perhaps gain a bit more survivability with your troops. And again, it's more just to illustrate again that there are more than one range for your Panzergrenadiers to engage from and actually win. I mean, overall, their weapons do a lot more damage. They shoot a lot of bullets, and again, they can win at other ranges than up in your opponent's face. And while, for example, with shock troopers, it might be less relevant, but for example, if you're fighting conscript with submachine guns, you know, you might not necessarily want to run into them. And, you know, get within range of their submachine guns, having them just fire at them while they're standing still, thus getting their small bonuses there. And you might say, well, what can I do? Well, again, you can engage from medium range, because, again, you know, you'll be able to do damage to them there. And if they want to charge you again, then they'll be moving into your close range first, and again, you get the advantage that way. Since submachine guns generally tend to be a bit tricky on the move and get a little less effect overall. Again, there are little tricks there, little things to keep in mind, little differences. And again, that's sort of one of the more hidden secrets of the Panzergrenadiers. If you will know how to use them again, think of the different ranges of the assault rifle and where to engage. And again, you don't always have to run up to the opponent. In particular, if there's a large amount of open ground between you and the opponent, again, he might be able to drop one of your Panzergrenadiers, all of a sudden dropping large amounts of combat effectiveness. So again, sometimes the trick is to engage at medium range. And again, they can do quite well there as well. You don't always have to run up to your opponent. A lot of people do seem to think, you know, the best way to just fight within, just run straight at the opponent. Not necessarily. Again, remember to use cover, remember to flank, remember to think of all those angles, but again, also remember when you're dealing with Panzergrenadiers, there are more than one range that's actually pretty good for them to engage in. Again, that's sort of the advantage, which seems to be ignored, that the assault rifle gives them. So, for example, fighting shock troopers, you know, don't run up to them, try to engage them from medium range, have them come to you, in which case, again, you get a bit more time, and again, you get them out moving, where again, all of a sudden, they do less damage, and that gives you a bit more time, and also a chance to pop a bun grenade in the path of movement. Little things there, which can perhaps make a difference for you in your firefights, and again, something I just wanted to highlight, because again, it's one of those little fun facts, which I do feel people might fancy knowing about and might help them enjoy their Panzergrenadiers more, and of course also something players might want to keep in mind while fighting them. So there you go. These are sort of some of the basics of the Panzergrenadiers. I'd like to be making videos of these kinds for other units, of course, but, you know, also making more advanced videos, sort of explaining more advanced tactics and whatnot. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you learned a lot from it. I hope you were inspired with new ideas and fighting with them and against them. This is Imperial Dan saying cheers. Whoops.